Hey, you want to make the perfect old-fashioned at home? Well, I've got the definitive recipe here for you to make one in your house at your home bar. Forget what you've heard before. This is the best one. It's 2 ounces of the base spirit, 2 cubes of sugar or the equivalent, dash of bitters, ice. It's the best version. Stay tuned. We're going to make one right now. So I've got, so it's 2 ounces of bourbon. I'm using Evan Williams. And then I've got a third of an ounce, which is the equivalent of a cube of Cointreau, orange liqueur. I'm using that as my sweetener, along with another cube or a third of an ounce of chocolate liqueur. My chocolate liqueur is Decadent, which is not a great brand, but what I do is I buy chocolate nibs and I add it to that Decadent to really boost up the chocolate content, and it's really great. It's economical too. Then I've got my 1 dash of orange bitters, and I have my ice in here. And so I then stir it. I give it about 20 stirs. And do it slowly and don't spill like I'm doing, but that's about 20 stirs, and I add my garnish, which is an orange peel. Express the orange, give it around the top, and there you have a very delicious old-fashioned. It's really very similar to the basic version, which has regular sugar instead of liqueurs, but the liqueurs really add a lot more interest. So I always try to swap in liqueurs. I don't particularly like 1 cube. I like 2 cubes. I'm going to go through all of this in my pro tip, and I'm going to tell you the history of the cocktail, and so stay tuned. This is Tuesday Night Cocktail Club. We bring you the best of the pro bar to your home bar. So the cocktail, the old-fashioned, was first named in the 1880s. There's, multiple versions of who invented it. According to David Wondrich, the cocktail historian, in Chicago, they referred to an old-fashioned in 1880. But the Pendennis Club in Louisville, Kentucky, which was founded in 1881, that club also claims to have invented the cocktail. Wondrich says, it was probably known as the old-fashioned, this drink, and they just kind of claimed it and popularized it. So I guess they still deserve some credit. It's still a social club, apparently, in Louisville. It's a big old building, I guess, downtown, and so it still exists. Anyways, the cocktail itself, though, the old-fashioned, it really is an interesting story how the name comes about, because cocktails were invented in the 1850s or so in America, and the idea originally was you had poor quality liquor and you added sugar to it and some bitters, and it was also, had some medicinal history too, and all of that was basically a cocktail. There's the brandy old-fashioned, which is popular in Wisconsin. There's other versions, in New Orleans and other places. And so as the American economy grew and changed, we began to import more and more ingredients from Europe. And to that drink, they started adding vermouth and other liqueurs, and other cocktails were born. The Martinez, the Martini, the Manhattan, all these cocktails were invented. And then some people actually preferred the other way, the older way, and so they would go into a bar and say, hey, give me an old-fashioned, meaning the older version. And that's basically where the name comes from. Anyways, that's my story of the old-fashioned, and that's my recipe. I think most people do a recipe with a single cube. I think it needs the extra cube, especially if you're using liqueurs instead of just straight sugar. Actually, and let me get into my pro tip, when I do a regular version, in other words, I don't use liqueur, I just use sugar, I always like to use a simple syrup for 1 teaspoon, which is equivalent to a cube. I use a teaspoon of simple syrup, and then I like to use some brown sugar, Demar's sugar, so it stays crunchy at the bottom of the glass. I like that. So I think that gives it some extra mouthfeel. So that's a different way of doing it. Anyways, but I used, like I said, 2 teaspoons of the orange liqueur and the chocolate liqueur. But you really could do any number of versions. I had some Chambord. I made that the other day. You could use elderflower liqueur. You probably could use different types of Amaro, even maybe. Anything just to get that 2 teaspoons of sugar, which I think is the right amount. And then, the great thing about an old fashioned is the way it melts and evolves in the glass as you drink it. Anyways, that's just such a delicious cocktail. It really has that perfect balance of the rich, sugary flavor of the bourbon, combined with the sweeteners. The chocolate comes through, the orange comes through, with the bitters and the orange liqueur. It's just a delicious drink. Anyways, that's an old fashioned. Thank you for joining Tuesday Night Cocktail Club. We meet every week. Please like and subscribe. Next week, I've really got I've got a highball in mind, so I'm going to make a highball next week. And that's Tuesday Night Cocktail Club. Like and subscribe.